Your Power of 10 profile states that on the top of the first page, lead coach John Nuttall. But I know little about him, and it's not something which I see you really promote too much. How did the association come around, and how much influence does he actually have on you?
Yeah, well, I mean, John first of all is an experienced athlete and one of the best British distance runners in the sort of 80s and 90s. So he's run faster than me over most of the middle to long distances, like the likes of. He's run one of the fastest 3Ks by any British athlete. He's run a very fast 5K and a good 10K. I think I might have just pipped him over. I'm not sure. I might have just pipped him over 15. I certainly had over 800. And I don't think he's run a marathon. But yeah, he's first of all a very good athlete, and he's been a coach now for a number of years. Who I originally met actually when I went on my first altitude experience, which was in a place called Potchefstroom in South Africa. I went out there for a few weeks in the winter, in a British winter in January of maybe 2007 or 2008. And I had a coach at the time already, and I was sort of running I was running middle distance and moving up to sort of 5K I think over the course of that winter. John was out there. I paid my way out to get out there. It wasn't one of any UK camp, but there was UK athletes out there, and the usual suspects like Mo Farah, people like Gemma Simpson and Mark Rowland, who was another coach who was out there. And John was there as well, in the UK coach capacity. And we first met, sort of became friendly then, if you like, and I think it was later that season I was looking to kind of change my coach because I was I think when I was looking to move up to the 5, my coach was more specialising in middle distance events. I was looking at what options were sort of available to me, and John was one of the people I approached. Well, in fact, the only person I approached, and we sort of built our relationship from that point, really.
You know a lot about running yourself, though. I mean, do you listen to everything John says, or do you think, well, I know my body best, I know I've got a lot of knowledge which I've learned myself? You know, I'm going to take that on, I'm going to work to that base first.
Yeah, sure, yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, when I started working with John, I was an inexperienced distance runner, if you like, but I've been around on the scene for a while, so I think particularly now, I wouldn't say particularly now, I know I've always been based in Guernsey, but when John has coached me, so it's not like a coach like a traditional UK athlete-coach relationship where you kind of maybe you're living and breathing the same air a lot of the time. When we meet up most of the time, it's usually in somewhere, not even in the UK, it's either in Kenya or Font-Romeu. So the relationship is quite different, I guess, to a lot of other coach-athlete relationships, in that the feedback that I provide and my input is probably more than many. And one, it's got to the stage, and as you pointed out, I've been around a while now, so I kind of know what my body likes and doesn't like, and sort of give a lot more feedback now than I did in my early days of being coached. So. And a lot more input generally to the training, so I tend to structure most of the day-to-day training. I do set my own strength and conditioning aspects. So really, John is kind of the key workouts we identify between the two of us. He'll make suggestions about how long I need to be used, things like altitude tents in relation to the camps I've got coming up. And I've also, as well as John, got fortunate enough to get input from the UK physiologist Barry Fedge, who's like really one of the most knowledgeable people I've met to help me with the science side of my training. And I regularly get lab testing, which Barry does the tests for, and gives me feedback on the aspects of how my physiology is changing, and then how you can structure your training in order to get the most out of yourself. I've always been I always think I've been quite thorough in how I've approached my training, and that's kind of those sort of things I think have been very useful. Helping me with that. So.
How important was the degree you took at Bath in terms of developing your own career and learning about athletics?
Yeah, well, I've always been quite interested in that side of things, and it worked as a good stepping stone for me. First of all, from being an athlete who lived and trained in Guernsey, and occasionally went away to race, to someone who thought, well, actually, right, this is the sort of environment I need to expose myself to more often. Whether that, initially, of course, it was going away to Bath and living there for 2 years, and that acted as a springboard for a number of things. I stepped up as an athlete, I think, then in terms of my approach and all the other facets and aspects of your training that people don't take into consideration, like the nutrition, like the training, the massage, the kind of the support that you need from not just the running, And but in terms of actually my the career, as maybe not as an athlete, but someone who works in the fitness industry as well, that kind of, I was in a great place. Like Bath has top class facilities. You're able to see other athletes, and not just see just the athletes themselves, but seeing the facilities that are in use and the kind of the roles that people play in that. So people that work in the strength and conditioning industry, people who work as nutritionists, as sports psychologists, and seeing that the positions and the roles in sport that exist, and thinking, no, actually, at that point I wasn't thinking maybe I'm going to just make a career solely out of being an athlete. So, and rarely, in fact, enough to support you anyway as in terms of a career path. So you're looking at other ways, ways to support yourself, and that kind of gave me a little taste of what I might want to do. And that's where I actually, during that time, as well as doing my course at Bath, I actually also did some other separate courses to seeing myself work as a personal trainer, which I then went on to do when I got back to Guernsey initially. So.
I guess Charlie Cotton was your first coach as such, and then others had an influence over you. Charlie and the GIAAC coaching system has always been a bit conservative in terms of restricting mileage for young runners compared to the UK. With all what you know now, do you think we've got it right over here in terms of preparing young athletes?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I mean, I think there's always, things are always evolving and it can always be done differently, but I think for me it worked well, because actually I was a late bloomer in terms of athletics for a variety of reasons. I think I was quite young. I was quite young for my age, if you want to call it that. And so certainly up in my training at that younger age, so it might have been the right thing anyway. But I had plenty of opportunities, and there was a good kind of junior endurance section. There was also a small group of athletes that kind of stayed through the under 13s and under 15s sort of age groups, and a group of 4 of us, myself, Ian Craig, Scott Ingram and Ben Dunning, and they were all 2 years older than me, and I was always the 4th person to make up a team with those guys at races that over here, like the relay at Easter, and events over in the UK as well. So it was good. It worked really well for me, I think, because I had people that were older than me and better than me, so I was always chasing people, and I was never, whilst I did well at school and was maybe kind of the better athlete at school, I was never the outstanding performer at those younger age groups, be it locally or in the UK. And I think I was always aspiring to be that better athlete. So I never got to the position where I could think, or I never believed that I was better, necessarily head and shoulders above everybody else at that young age, and then had the problem of then suffering defeat as maybe everyone else caught me up. I was the person trying to catch everybody else up, and I think that kind of worked well in nurturing some athletes. As I got older and started being better, I started to develop a real taste for that kind of success within athletics, and actually my eyes are of course opened with a variety of ways to kind of what actually opportunities lay ahead if I put the work in. So it worked well for me, and I think it's, there's arguments of course that doing more at a younger age to bring people through a better level, but there is also a lot of downsides to that, in that there's a higher dropout rate, because if you give too much at a young age, it's almost too much of a good thing, and really the athletes have lost interest by the time they get to that critical age of when you want to really push them forward into being an elite athlete. So I think a little something of a good thing is good, and better over maybe too much of a good thing. Obviously where you draw the line, of course, is open to debate often.
Have you a date or age in your head when you think that this will do for me and other illusions?
Yes and no. I haven't made any kind of goals at this stage past the 2014 Commonwealth Games, but at the same time there's a little part of me that would actually, I think you said earlier to me, possibly your first but only Olympics, and there's part of me that would quite like to think that this isn't my only Olympics, and opportunity to use London as chance to compete on the biggest stage, but then maybe to gain experience for another Olympics. I'm not, as a marathon runner, particularly old marathon runner, I've got plenty more years ahead of me in that sense. But I think what it will boil down to will be my own individual hunger, and within that, can I put the family through another sort of 4 years of all that time and commitment of work away from home? So, that's why I haven't made any of those goals. I'm gonna see how these next couple of years go, continue in kind of my progressions as an athlete. I think I've still got plenty more development to do. I certainly haven't run anywhere near. I think there's times that I can run for the marathon, and I'd love to win a medal for Guernsey at the Commonwealth Games. I think that was one of the, maybe not necessarily the medal, but certainly competing at the Commonwealth Games was one of my kind of reach for goals when I was a kid at school. We had to fill out a sort of a statement, that sort of like what we wanted out of life and where we see ourselves going, and things we'd like to achieve. And one of the things I identified earlier was I'd love to compete at a Commonwealth Games. I don't know if I even really truly believed I'd be good enough to do that when I was at school, but it was one of those things I dreamed about. And then when I managed to achieve that, then I thought, well, actually, there's, and certainly now I'm moving up to marathon and seeing some of the people that have achieved medals at the marathon at past Commonwealth Games, it's a very realistic possibility. So, but beyond that, will depend really on how life goes for the family, really, over the next few years. It won't be about me, it'll be about other people.
Coach. Do you see yourself ever going back to the days of being an ordinary club runner? Turning out for the Liberation 7 Mile or the Winter Cross Country Series or anything like that? There will be a stage before you maybe, how old are you now?
33.
33. Yeah. By the time you're 40 perhaps, or well before then, you might say, well, I'm not, the Olympics are out the way, so I'm just being Guernsey. Do you think you'll still run? Yeah,
I think so. It's funny, there's part of me thought maybe I'll stop and then I'll do something completely different. I'll just take up another interest and see if that sparks kind of, maybe not trying to be an Olympian at it, but certainly something that will kind of get me out of bed. That's when I was planning to get me out of bed, because kids get me out of bed. But
we'll only get busier.
But yeah, something. I'll need something in sport. I love sport. I think I'll need something to, fitness-wise, to kind of put my energies into. I can't see myself not doing it. And running, I think, is. I love going out for a run. So whether I'm doing it competitively or just going out for a run, I'll always do that. That's something I've always enjoyed, especially during the summer. The weather's good, and maybe when it's cold, wet and windy in the middle of winter, and I don't need to do it. There's less incentive to go out there, then there's no need. Perhaps I'll look for something different, but I'm still a long way off, to be honest. So I think before I'm not going to make any decisions on that side of things at this stage. So.
Right. I noticed on Twitter recently, it made me giggle a little. You spoke your particular pride. You finally mowed your lawn for the first time.
I don't know if I should admit to that, but basically I admit the fact that I mowed our lawn the first time in about 18 months. Or a jungle anyway.
Must have been pretty long.
It'd been mowed before that, it just hadn't been by me. So fortunately, because I've been away so much over the last 18 months or so in training camps, and because we've obviously got the 2 kids now, it's it's a lot for Teresa to take on and be working. He was working full time some at that stage. So our in-laws, my in-laws, her parents would come over. They just coincided with their retirement. And they would come over and spend a few weeks at a time at our place, which was a new house and needed a lot of work. A new house that needed a lot of work doing to it, 'cause it was an old house, but so they quite often did the gardening, if you like. So I've never been. The appeal of doing gardening wasn't really there for me, but it was surprisingly satisfying seeing a cut lawn rather than seeing a wild field out and the back garden. But maybe I'll have a bit more time for that in a few years' time.
The domestic chores will have to be done at some stage.
Yeah, that's the reality of not being a runner, isn't it? Yeah.
Final couple of serious questions. You've seen the Olympic course. What do you think of it? And how will laps instead of an A to B race, like previous marathons, affect the mental side?
I quite like laps courses. I've done the World Championships now and the European Championships, and both of those have been laps courses. So I think it works. I think it's actually, I know some people don't, but it really doesn't bother me. I mean, I come from a track background anyway, and run more laps than I would do in a marathon, in a track race, okay, albeit shorter. Yeah. But I think it works well as an athlete and for a spectator. You know, the crowd support in Olympics anyway will be fantastic. But the fact that it's a lap course, it's going to be even more condensed, as it's less amount of road. And as an athlete, you're almost getting more familiar with the course as you go on, and you can get better information from the sidelines from people who are there. So I think there's a number of factors that can that work in their favour. And I've had some people say I don't really like a laps course, but it's not like we're running around it 25 times. I'm doing 3 laps of 8 miles and 1 lap of 2 and a bit miles. So it's not like I'm going to get bored of the route.
But does it affect the psychology of approaching it at all?
Not really. Your drink stations are still every 5k. The mile markers still come a mile or whatever or a point you're kind of looking at. So for me, no, not really. I mean, I guess in terms of maybe some sort of strategy, you might think, right, okay, I'll break the race down, and sort of breaking it down into 10k sections, and how you might approach it in terms of trying to push for positions or what have you. You can then use the laps for that purpose, but like I said, I don't think it really changes how I would approach the race in any shape or form. Any other than it gives you an opportunity to run, to see how you feel on that lap, and knowing when maybe there are you can almost suss out when some good points to consider trying to get away from people. But in the marathon, it's not like you're trying to make a sudden surge and break from all that often. There will become a point where that may happen, but I don't think lap courses necessarily change that for me.
No. Okay. Finally, Commonwealth Games 2014. Something you're looking towards post-Olympics, obviously, to keep up your interest, I should say, but focus. Have you any knowledge of what the Glasgow course would be like and compared to other?
Yeah, no, I don't at this stage. I don't know if we made it public what the course is, but I mean, for me, obviously it's all about the Olympics now, but the Commonwealths will be a big incentive for me post-Olympics, and an opportunity to run in a Guernsey vest. I know I've said it a few times now, but I don't get a chance to run for Guernsey all that often, and even less so these days. So, and it's always been something quite special to me, to be honest, to be able to do that especially on an international stage. And potentially for me, the carrot of trying to win a medal is very much a realistic achievement, and to be able to do that in a Guernsey vest would be kind of one of the few targets that I haven't perhaps yet achieved. So.
You feel you've got a real chance of medal in a Commonwealth 2000?
Especially looking at some of the athletes that have medalled in the past. So there's people that have not run as fast as I have and won a medal. There's people that run similar times to me, and you can say there are faster athletes. And there are strong nations with a good history of good marathon running, like Kenya. So it's by all means still going to be a tough challenge, but it's a realistic challenge and one I think. 2 years' time, I would expect to be sort of between now and then, kind of I guess in my peak in terms of my marathon years. So it sort of falls at no better time. The opportunity is there. So.